This House believes that stand your ground laws do more harm than good. This House is the governing body of the state of Florida. By belief, we mean that the impact of stand your ground laws seem to us with evidence to be greater than if the stand your ground laws were changed to encourage fleeing and not automatically give the right to a person in Florida to use deadly force if they feel reasonably threatened. The Florida laws don't encourage retreat, if possible, but rather allow the individual the immediate option to use lethal weapons. According to Jacob Sullum, a senior editor at Reason magazine and a nationally syndicated columnist, the stand your ground laws create a mentality that someone who's armed potentially has the right to use those firearms, even if there's a way for them to exit from a situation. Is that really going to be contributing to the kind of peace and security and order that we'd like to see? Political figures have agreed that the law is in need of improvement. Senator David Simmons from Altamonte Springs told the Senate Judiciary Committee that passed the bill that Florida's stand your ground law has been the subject of intense public debate and scrutiny, and that he thinks everyone has found it an excellent common sense law, but it is not perfect. Although this House does not think these laws do no good, we simply believe they do more harm than good. Aaron Deslate, the Tallahassee bureau chief, says the law needs changing because as it is now, the terms are defined loosely and not effective. He argues that a discussion needs to occur to be more specific and to include necessary clauses. He says that the law should require that law enforcement must conduct a full investigation in shootings, even if the law is claimed as a defense. This would make sure that people who aren't just falling back on the law's defense are justified in using force. One example, Senate Judiciary Chairman Tom Lee provides that stand your ground immunity does not apply in cases where the persons are engaged in unlawful activities. Unlawful activities are being used in cases where the person is an illegal immigrant. Is that justice? Just because this person is an illegal immigrant, does that necessarily mean they were not justified in protecting themselves with force? Or is it more of an abuse of the system that provides unequal protection to the people at risk? President Obama joined Attorney General Eric Holder when they suggested that eliminating the duty to retreat for people attacked outside of their homes encourages unnecessary violence. Deslate writes that it would be useful for us to examine some state and local laws to see if they are designed in such a way that they may encourage the kinds of altercations and confrontations and tragedies rather than diffuse potential altercations. It is clear that the law encourages people it gives the person the idea that they don't have to leave, but rather if they have to leave for it, so they can use it if they feel reasonably threatened. A person, if they can believe they can reasonably get away, should do that because even the law wouldn't punish those criminals with death if it got to that if they don't use that force themselves. Republican Alan Williams of Tennessee has filed a bill to repeal stand your ground entirely. For those who resist the idea that we should think about something like these stand your ground laws, I just ask people to consider if Trayvon Martin was of age and armed, could he have stood his ground on that sidewalk? And do we actually think that he would have been justified in shooting Mr. Zimmerman, who had followed him in a car because he felt threatened? If the answer to that question is at least ambiguous, then it seems to me that we might want to examine those kinds of laws. Martin would not have been justified in shooting Zimmerman simply because Zimmerman had followed him. But if Zimmerman had attacked him, Martin would have the right to meet force with force, including deadly force if he reasonably thought his life was in danger, which is not the same as merely feeling threatened. The stand your ground laws encourage a type of violence that could be avoided if the stand your ground laws specifically included a clause that encouraged retreat first, if retreat could be reasonably attained. There is no reason why a person should use force simply because they have force.